kindly help me in welcoming Ray Ball.
I was going to thank CARE for inviting me to the conference until I found out why. To work, wrong way. Whoops. As Peter so famously pointed out yesterday, they plan to focus on young people, and this has been the butt of many jokes, right? What not well known is they've secretly prepared a list. They've classified people into young, middle-aged, old, fossil, and long since beyond it, right? Now, what's also not well known is that they have very deep pockets. I hear rumors they have millions of dollars a year to spend on conferences such as this. There's a rumor that the 2008 conference will be in Nice, where they do have decent wine. I personally think Georgia should stick to peaches. And so, since they're scared of it, they're terrified of an age discrimination suit. With deep pockets and federal age discrimination laws, they have to pay lip service to the old people. First, clear them out of the way. Subsequent conferences, none of us are going to get asked. Now I know why I'm here. Okay? I've also been asked to talk a little bit about earnings quality. It's always very daunting to contemplate following Kathy. If you look at Kathy's vita, it's quite extraordinary. I think she has more invited discussions and commentaries than anyone I know, which just attests to the fact that she always delivers very thoughtful commentary. So I've tried to prepare some remarks that I thought might be a little bit orthogonal to hers, but it turns out in many places they actually overlap. I'm going to talk about first why, just a few simple points in the time available, why I think earnings quality is an important issue. I'll just have a couple of bullets on that, and then I'll give a couple of reasons why I believe that it's a difficult concept to deal with. What are some of the problems with it? Kathy's already talked about many of those in various ways. I'm going to try not to overlap what I think Jake will talk about. And then I'm going to end up with a vacuous conclusion. It's the usual conclusion. Well, every concept has got strengths and weaknesses, and whether you end up living with it in any scientific literature depends upon whether or not people discover that it helps them organize their way of thinking about things well enough relative to confusing the way they think about things, which is what Kathy spoke about. Okay? So why is earnings quality important? First, and I think Kathy's already talked a lot about that, earnings quality issues actually are implicit in a lot of what we research, what we teach, and what is done in practice. Second, I'll talk about quality makes us look at both users, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the other side of the marketplace for financial reporting, which is the production function. I think that we have to talk about both of these simultaneously to address quality. And I'm going to talk about earnings quality and financial reporting quality generally. Why do we focus on earnings in this context? Okay, first, earnings quality issues are pervasive. Some examples. When you mentioned, Kathy, yesterday, our 1968 study, that's really what we started out trying to look at. We talked about two qualities of earnings. We talked about information content and timeliness. And we said, look, this thing seems to have some information content, but it rates very, very lowly in terms of timeliness. And the subsequent literature, I think, derailed that a little bit. But we were really talking about observable qualities of earnings as reported to the financial markets through the eyes of the financial markets, looking at the financial market response to the earnings number. This consists of not looking at things like the accounting standards that are on the books, not looking at what auditors do on a day-to-day basis, but looking at the output and looking at it through the eyes of an important group of users. Then the costly contracting studies, when they talk about usefulness of earnings in debt and compensation contracts, they are implicitly talking about quality. If the quality was useless, if it was garbage, it wouldn't be used. In fact, to go back to the Ball-Brown paper, we were told when we started that we'd be correlating garbage with garbage. That's a direct quote. When you're a first-year doctoral student and a senior professor says that to you, it's a bit daunting, but that's what we were told. And If earnings numbers were in fact garbage of low quality, we wouldn't see them prevailing so much in compensation contracts, debt contracts. We wouldn't see market responses. We wouldn't see correlations. Then the current earnings management bubble is, in that literature, something which is very strongly addressing the issue of quality. So yes, quality issues are pervasive, and that's one of the reasons we talk about it. Secondly, and this is one of my big bugbears, I think that quality makes us simultaneously consider both users and preparers, both as a concept and in measurement. My interpretation of quality is like the way I see quality in any industry. If General Motors decides it has to assess the quality of its autos, it has to ask, what do customers want? What do they think about quality? I drive an Audi. Audi got dissed in all of the American reviews, including Car and Driver, for having inadequate sized coffee cups. Having dropped on my leather seat, underneath myself that is, 2 cups of Starbucks as a result of falling out of that inadequate coffee holder, I understand totally that even though it's a delightful car to drive, during some of those moments it was a very low quality car. And so you actually have to know something as a preparer about user decision context before you have any notion of what quality really is. And financial reporting quality, I don't think is any exception. It's like any other industry in that regard. So one of the reasons I think we should address this issue of quality is it forces a nexus between supply and demand. Second, I think earnings quality is a nice index of financial reporting quality generally. It's not a perfect index, but as we know, earnings flows onto a balance sheet. And if you take noise in an income statement and roll it onto the balance sheet, you introduce noise in the balance sheet. And to some degree, lesser degree, it affects cash flow statements. And so I think our focus on earnings quality is not only due to the Wall Street focus on earnings. Problems with earnings quality as a concept. This is where I think it gets a bit more interesting. I'll talk about 3 things. I'll talk about quality meaning something different to different users. I'll talk about optimal financial reporting and earnings quality in the context of disclosure. And Kathy alluded to this, the complementarity versus substitutability issue. And I'll argue that optimal quality depends upon cost. And Jake's going to discuss measurement issues. I'm trying here not to tread on your toes as much as possible. Jake,
you can have my time.
Okay. Quality differs by users. This is a hot issue, hence the bullet. Quality differs by users. We take the relevance of the R-squared at the individual security level between book and market earnings and returns. The relevance of that differs between people with well-diversified portfolios and poorly diversified portfolios. You can take a random sample of 100 firms, especially if you evaluate it. Don't cheat by equal weighting it, but evaluate it. Evaluate the earnings, evaluate the returns, and you'll find across those portfolios of 100 randomly selected stocks, the R-squared between earnings and portfolio returns is 1. Okay, the R-squared at the individual security level way underestimates the R-squared at a portfolio level. And so for people who are simply constructing diversified portfolios, earnings is a fairly, is a higher quality measure than people who are trading on individual stocks. If you have a stock-by-stock focus, anything that affects the quality of earnings on a stock-by-stock basis is more relevant to you. So even the R-squared issue, which has been pushed around a lot in the literature, really does depend upon what your perspective is. Debt and equity market demands differ. That's another hot issue. What is quality in the debt market is possibly different than what is quality to a user in the equity market. Financial reporting, that is recognition, this is a paradox. Financial reporting, accounting recognition is more important in the debt market, I believe, than in the equity market. In the equity market, in terms of the substitutability issue, equity investors are less interested in whether they become informed through the financial statements or via other means. They're less interested in that. so long as they become informed. However, if you write a debt contract in terms of what's in the financial statements, you have a very strong interest in recognition issues. And the paradox is that the correlation between book and market and between earnings and returns probably is relevant to lenders than it is to the debt market than it is to the equity market. That's one of the strange paradoxes in this. That the actual marking of economic gains and losses onto the balance sheet enforces the rights of lenders in a more timely fashion than not doing it. If you write a leverage contract to say that I'll restrict leverage to maybe 45% of net tangible assets, 60% of net tangible assets, that covenant is trashed if accountants don't revise the value of the assets conditional upon economic losses, as we saw, say, with the Japanese banks for a decade. And so timely recognition, to my mind, is more important to lenders in terms of enforcing their contractual rights to do things like restrict dividends, restrict new investments, restrict major transactions that are negative net present value investments, than it is to the equity market. That's one of the paradoxes. Secondly, gains versus losses. Debt and equity market in terms of recognition, that is what gets into the income statement and what gets into the balance sheet. The debt market, which is more focused, as I said earlier, on recognition than on disclosure, the debt market is going to be more interested in recognition of economic losses, because the role of recognition is only triggered in a debt contract conditional upon an adverse outcome. So I believe that then what is quality in the eyes of a lender is different than quality in the eyes of an equity investor, as distinct from the first bullet point, which is who are you as an equity investor? Are you running a diversified portfolio, or are you trading on individual company earnings? And so I don't think you can discuss quality without a user group in mind. I also believe that the notion of general purpose financial statements, which is in the concept statements, is a total myth. That's a personal view. Joint optimality, financial reporting and disclosure. This is an issue that Kathy spoke about. Is financial reporting a complement or a substitute to other sources of information? I've just got an example here to try and get that point across. Assume financial reporting quality and disclosure quality are not independent. Assume they are not. There's an interaction, okay? Then you can't talk about the optimal level of one by itself. There's a joint optimality that's involved, okay? An example, okay? Suppose we think of a basis in accounting, simple accounting, cash accounting, you just count cash outcomes, okay? And start thinking about now bringing in more forward-looking information, right? As we do that, we're going to be bringing in more information that is private to managers. Because disclosure has in it managers disclosing things that they know that people external to the firm do not know. And as we start to build more forward-looking information, as we start to do more and more accruals based upon expectations of revisions of future cash flows, we get into the issue of whose expectations. And are they independently observable? Are they auditable? And as we increase the R-squared between earnings and returns by bringing in more of the non-financial reporting information into the financial statements, what we do is we take away one of the disciplinary measures on managers releasing their own beliefs. What is that? We are relying less and we're reporting less and less actual outcomes. And if you report actual outcomes and don't report expectations, then you basically hold managers' feet to the fire a little bit more in terms of what they actually say, in terms of their expectations and their beliefs, their plans, strategies, lies about the future. So I believe it is logically possible that you can increase information, you can increase the quality of earnings as measured by really want to give a little bit more attention perhaps to not viewing financial reporting as a free good. So a vacuous summary. All all concepts have strengths and weaknesses. Earnings equality is no exception. And whether or not it survives as a concept, I think, will depend upon whether people find it to be a useful vehicle for organizing their thinking about the world. Thanks.